6 incredible facts you didn't know about the Mali Empire. The Mali Empire was one of the largest empires in West African history, and at its height it spanned from the Atlantic coast to central parts of the Sahara desert. The empire was founded in 1235 CE by the legendary king Sundiata, also called as Sundiata, and lasted until the early 1600s CE. The empire's most famous ruler was named Musa, and chroniclers of the times wrote that when he traveled to Mecca on a pilgrimage, he distributed so much amount of gold that caused great inflation lasting a decade. If you're new here, you're welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more amazing videos like this. And without further ado, let's get started. Number 1. How the Mali Empire first began. Well, the Mali Empire was formed when a ruler named Keita united the tribes of the Mandinka peoples. He then led them to overthrow the rule of the Sosa. Over time, the Mali Empire became stronger and took over surrounding kingdoms including the Empire of Ghana. But the path to this great battle had been a long one. Sundiata Keita was born in the ruins of the Empire of Ghana, a once great state fallen to chaos, founded sometime around the year 700. The Empire of Ghana had grown rich as the middleman traded in gold which was prized by trans-Saharan caravans in the north for salt that was needed in the rainforest bordering its south. Their coffers grew fat off the trade, and from tasking merchants who crossed their territory. But the empire's neighbors grew envious of Ghana's wealth and power, making it an irresistible target. By the 11th century, a Moroccan encouraging damaged the empire to the point that it was no longer able to guard its small farming villages, and as those villages began to fend for themselves, they increasingly began to vie for independence. Meanwhile, drought forced people to migrate, pushing teetering Ghana state past the point of collapse. A dozen minor fiefdoms emerged, the shattered remnants of a once mighty nation. The Mandinka prince Sundiata was born into one of those fiefdoms, unable to walk. Because of his disability, the royal family mocked and mistreated the boy and his mother throughout his childhood. But this prince will not be so easily cowed. For years, he struggled against the dead weight of his legs until at the age of 7 he took his first step. But as the young Sundiata finally won the approval of his father, his half-brothers, the sons of the king's other wife, began to resent him and fear that he might actually be chosen over them in the line of succession. When the king died, Sundiata's mother knew her family wasn't safe. She fled into exile with her son and all of his siblings, gaining asylum at the court of a neighboring king. Sundiata would watch his half-brothers rule from afar, but as he grew older, the tenacious little prince became a favorite of his adopted king too. The monarch appointed him as a viceroy and even allowed Sundiata to govern in his absence. But back in his homeland, trouble was brewing. A number of smaller states and local leaders scrambled to fill the void left by the collapsed Empire of Ghana, including the sorcerer king Sumaro Kante. Sumaro seized the former capital of the empire and expanded it outwards, enveloping Sundiata's people. An exceptionally cruel leader, according to the epic. Sumaro kept the head of 9 defeated kings in his chamber and wore sandals made from human skin. The Mandinka people suffered under his rule. Desperate for aid, Sundiata's family sent messengers out to the neighboring kingdom begging Sundiata to help liberate them from their oppressors. Despite the years of separation and mistreatment, Sundiata resolved to return and fight. He brought with him half of his veterans' army, but even that were no match for the forces of the sorcerer king Sumaro. To have any chance, he would have to unite a coalition of smaller, desperate kingdoms to oppose Sumaro. By force of will, personality, and a shared hatred of Sumaro's cruelty, he actually managed to do so. Their revolt began in 1234. The sides made spears flash and sorcerers chant incantations. Sundiata presses forward through the melee, moving towards the sorcerer king Sumaro. He knows that there is one chance. He must shoot an arrow tipped with a rooster spur through the evil enchanter. His bow bends, the string twines, and the arrows flies, hit and kill the sorcerer king Sumaro Kante. Number 2. Sundiata was crowned the first Mansa, or also called as the Emperor. In the wake of the battle, Sundiata only 18 was crowned Mansa, or Emperor of the 12th nation alliance that had marched with him. The nations were technically answerable to him, but he ran the Mali Empire more as a federation than as an absolute despot, with each tribe sending a chiefly representative to court. With its desperate hostile tribes now fully integrated, Sundiata's new kingdom was uniquely situated for success. Indeed, the borders of Mali expanded further than Ghana's ever had, And unlike the Ghana Empire, which has been merely situated between salt deposits to the north and productive gold mines to the south, the Mali Empire's newly annexed territories now contain 3 immense gold mines within its own borders. Seeing this potential, Sundiata reinvigorated the trade in salt, slaves, and gold, taxing every merchant who passed through his lands. The combination of a decentralized, stable government and steady tax revenue allows Sundiata to organize an outfit of a sizable full-time military to guard the caravan routes, ensuring that trade will continue to flow. He selected his hometown of Niani as the new capital of his empire, a center which was further south than the old Ghanaian capital, less vulnerable to Moroccan raiders and better situated for agriculture. Sundiata ruled for about 25 years and died in 1255. Number 3. The Mali Empire was the largest gold producer in the world. The caravan routes met at Niani and other staging posts, and their protection was a major function of the empire. Gold, salt, copper, and coconut were central to Mali's economy. With a good location and opening up to the Atlantic Ocean, they managed to turn Mali into one of the biggest trading regions in the world. They were selling gold and salt at a time where Europe was struggling to obtain an whole board of them. Following the reigns of Sundiata, Mali became the world's largest producer of gold, along with the movement of material goods and the dissemination of Mandi language, technology, and culture. Number 4. One of Sundiata's successor's son was killed in a riot. After the death of Sundiata, his successor ruled for 15 more years, and during that time he adopted the sons of his generals as a part of his effort to hold on to power. And when he died, 2 of his adopted sons split the country in a devastating civil war. First, one son ruled for 4 years, his reign's lavishness matched only by his cruelty. Then upon his death, the other son took the throne and proved an even worse ruler than his brother. Some chroniclers describe how he would use bows and arrows to kill people for entertainment. Because of his misrule, the people rose up and killed him in a riot. After that, the nation's representatives swore, "No more foolishness, it was time to govern." Number 5. Mansa Musa was the richest man to ever live with a net worth of over $400 billion. Perhaps the most famous of the Mali emperors was Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa became famous because of his lavish trip to Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Mecca is the holy city of the Muslims, and Mansa Musa decided to make a pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324. Mansa Musa set off on the most extravagant Hajj to Mecca in the history of humanity. It was a trip calculated to attract the world's attention and put Mali on the map. 2 other Mansas had made the Hajj previously, but that was during a more chaotic time, when the resources and ambitions of rulers were diverted to surviving war and famine. Musa's pilgrimage will be part religious journey, part publicity stunt. It was a statement to the Islamic world that the Mali Empire was thriving, devout, and powerful. Some accounts claim it took over a day for his opulent caravan to pass. Mansa Musa was extremely rich that he brought as many as over 60,000 people along with him. At its head were 500 heralds carrying gold staffs and a personal retinue of 12,000 servants dressed in silk and carrying gold bars. A baggage train of 600 camels followed, each one carrying 300 pounds of gold dust. Mansa Musa brought along with his wife and her 500 servants. They took a baggage train with enough pack animals to carry provisions for the entire crew. At every step of the way, the well-dressed generals and pious group made a favorable impression. To fulfill his religious duty to share his wealth for the poor, Mansa Musa gave handfuls of gold dust to beggars and passers-by. He built mosques every Friday on his entire trip, and he spent months in the Cairo bazaars buying souvenirs at absolutely inflated prices. In fact, Mansa Musa spent and gave away so much amount of gold in Cairo, Medina, and Mecca that he flooded the market, crashing the gold value. Although Musa attempted to rectify this by court, borrowing gold from money lenders in Cairo at high interest, the value of gold still took over a decade to recover in the Middle East. Centuries later, residents of Cairo were still telling stories of his pilgrimage train, and their reports filtered to Europe through the traders of Venice. By 1375, European cartographers were producing maps that featured Mali, represented by Mansa Musa inspecting a gold nugget. But this gratuitous display wasn't just to show off, it was also to attract talent. On his return trip from Mecca, Mansa Musa brought Arab scholars, bureaucrats, and architects with him, in hope of building Mali into an Islamic cultural and religious center. On his way back home, Mansa Musa took a different route. through Timbuktu and Gao, which his armies had invaded and conquered while he had been away. He stopped at these new trading centers not just to battle his new conquest, but to access his new assets. Now, in addition to his Saharan trade centers in the west, he had two in the east that also sat on the Niger River. It was a good position for trade. Timbuktu in particular will become a project of his, and there he will put all of those new architects and scholars to work. Together, they designed numerous buildings for the emperor, including a new palace, mosques, libraries, universities, and the great Dingarebe mosque at Timbuktu, which still stands today. This resulted in a boom of Islamic education in Mali. An influx of trained minds, artists, and artisans brought increased commerce and made Timbuktu a leading city in the Islamic world. And this was at a time when the most advanced nations in the world were Muslim, from Spain to Central India. Mali became the center of Islam in sub-Saharan Africa, missionizing its neighbors. It was said that while gold came from the south and salt from the north, knowledge came from Timbuktu. Because of its unique location near the Sahara Desert and on the Niger River, it was a melting pot and a hub of intellectual and cultural exchange. Books were not only written in Timbuktu but also imported from all over. There was an advanced book copying industry there, and at a time when books were luxury goods that were difficult and expensive to produce. And all of this was backed by Mansa Musa's leadership in growing his empire. But shortly after his death, the empire began its slow collapse. Number 6. Mansa Musa's massive fortune was dismantled after 2 generations. Mansa Musa descendants dismantled his fortune in less than 100 years. The 2 generations that followed him were not able to control their spending, the wars and invasions that followed, so it's all went downhill. After his pilgrimage, it's no surprise that everyone came upon them to get their hands on the gold, especially Europeans, which were facing harsh famine and poverty at the time. Upon discovering the vast wealth that Mali had accrued, a race began across Europe to invade and conquer the empire. But it was first invaded by Portuguese in 1444, when soldiers lined the coast and diplomats tried to permit slaves to rebel from their masters. The Malian Empire put up a good fight and prevented Portugal from conquering them entirely. But after years of sustained warfare, Portugal colonized several important trade centers on the Malian coast, essentially cutting it off from the world. This colonization continued for hundreds of years, and Mali eventually became a French colony. The French exploited Mali for its natural resources and forced its inhabitants into poverty. The Mali is a sovereign nation today, and French is still the national language, and almost half of Mali's population lives below the international poverty line. Mali is one of the 25 poorest countries in the world. The average annual salary of a Malian is $1,500 in a single year. This is a far cry from the strong empire that Mansa Musa created. Thank you so much for watching today, and be sure to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.